This is the History of Algeria podcast. Each week on Mondays, we'll be updating new information about the history of Algeria. This is an Eat to My Own Beat podcast. Welcome back to episode 21 of the History of Algeria podcast. Tassili, Algeria, Prehistoric Art. The rock formation is an archaeological site, noted in the numerous prehistoric parietal works of rock art, first reported in 1910, that dates to early Neolithic era at the end of the last glacial period, during which the Sahara was habitable savanna rather than the current desert. Although sources were considerably the earliest pieces of art are presumed to be 12,000 years old. The vast majority date to the 9th and 10th millennia BP or younger, according to OSL dating of associated sediments. The art was dated by gathering small fragments of the painted panels that had dried out and flaked off before being buried. Among the 15,000 engravings so far identified, the subjects depicted a large wild animals, including antelopes and crocodiles, cattle herds, and humans who engage in activities such as hunting and dancing. These paintings are some of the earliest by Central Saharan artists and occur in the largest concentration of Tassili. Although in Algeria, relatively close to the Iberian Peninsula, the rock art of Tassili and Algeria evolved separately from that of the European tradition. According to UNESCO, the exceptional density of paintings and engravings have made Tassili world famous. Similar to other Saharan sites with rock art, Tassili can be separated into 5 distinct traditions. Archaic, 10,000 to 7,500 BCE. Roundhead, 7,550 to 550 BC. 5050 BCE, my apologies. Bolivian or pastoral, 4,500 to 4,000 BCE. Horse from 2000 BCE to 50 CE. And camel, 1000 BCE and onward. The Archaic period consists primarily of wild animals that lived in the Sahara during the early Holocene. These works are attributed to the hunter-gatherer peoples, consisting of only etchings. Images are primarily of larger animals, depicted in naturalistic manner, with the occasional geometric pattern and the human figure. Usually the humans and animals are depicted within the context of a hunting scene. The Roundhead period is associated with specific stylistic choices depicting humanoid forms, as well as separated from the archaic tradition, even though hunter-gatherers were the artists for both. The art consists of many paintings, with some of the oldest and largest exposed rock paintings in Africa. One human figure stands over 5 meters, another at 3.5 meters. The unique depiction of floating figures with round, featureless heads and formless bodies appear to be floating on the rock surface, hence the Roundhead label. The occurrence of these paintings and motifs are concentrated in specific locations of the plateau, implying that these sites were the center of ritual rites and ceremonies. Most animals shown are mouflon and antelope, usually in static positions that do not appear to be in part of a hunting scene. The Bovidian and pastoral period correlates with the arrival of domesticated cattle into the Sahara and the gradual shift from mobile pastoralism. There is a notable and visual difference between the pastoral period and early two periods, coinciding with the artification of the Sahara. There is an increased stylistic variation implying the movement of the different cultural groups within the area. Domesticated animals such as cattle, sheep, goats, and dogs are depicted, paralleling the zooarchaeological records of the area. The scenes reference diversified communities of herders, hunters with bows, as well as women and children, and implying a growing stratification of society based on property. The following horse traditions corresponded with the complete desertification of the Sahara and the requirement for the new travel methods. The arrival of horses, horse-drawn chariots, and riders' depiction, often in mid-gallop, are associated more with the hunting than the warfare. Inscriptions of Libyan Berber script used by ancestral Berber peoples appear to be in the images. However, the text is completely indecipherable. The last period is defined by the appearance of camels, which replace donkeys and cattle as the main mode of transportation across the Sahara. The arrival of camels coincides with the development of long-distance trade routes used by caravans to transport salt, goods, and enslaved peoples across the Sahara. Men, both mounted and unmounted, with shields and spears and swords are present. Animals, including cows and goats, are included, but wild animals were crudely rendered. Although these periods are successive, the timeframes are flexible, consistently being reconstructed by archaeologists as technology and interpretation develop. The art had been dated by archaeologists who gather fallen fragments and debris from the rock face. A notable piece common in academic writing was the running horned woman, also known as the horned goddess, from the round head period. The image depicts a female figure with horns in mid-stride. Dots adorn her torso and limbs, and she is dressed in fringed armbands, a skirt, leg bands, and anklets. According to Asherisha Razak, Tassili's horned goddess is the early example of the African sacred feminine. Her femininity, fertility, and connection to nature are emphasized with the Neolithic artist superimposes the figure into small, older figures. The use of bull horns is a common theme later round head paintings, which reflects the steady integration or domestication of cattle into Saharan daily life. Cattle imagery, specifically that of bulls, became a central theme not only to Tassili, but as other nearby sites in Libya. Thank you for listening to the History of Algeria podcast. Please check back every Monday at noon Pacific time for a new episode. Also available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Check us out at www.eatmyownbeat.com.